This is Meridian 59. It might not look like much, but behind this crunchy 10 polygon per screen exterior is actually a really deep, rich game with an amazing impact on one of the most important genres in gaming history. Meridian 59 was one of the first MMORPGs ever created, and even more importantly, it was the first 3D MMORPG ever created. So much of what this game did would influence MMORPG history for years and years to come. Games like Ultima, EverQuest, and Runescape all have very visible traces of what Meridian did in their DNA. But in front of this deep, rich history is the 10 polygon per screen, crunchy exterior, and it's kind of hard to look at, and it's even harder to play. That's in large part because Meridian 59 came out in 1996. I mean, heck, I came out just 1 year before in 1995. So I was a baby. In other words, just like me, Meridian 59 is pretty old, but also just like me, it deserves your respect. So I decided I would set out to play Meridian 59 and truly understand what made it so special and learn if it still holds up to this day, almost 30 years later. And to accomplish that goal, I couldn't just play the game for 1 hour or 10 hours or 15 hours. I needed to do something a little drastic. So I played Meridian 59 for 100 hours. I actually played it for 116 hours. In conclusion, I am unwell.
This episode is brought to you by my Patreon supporters. Thank you so much to all my Patreon supporters. I love them, and I will one day consume their life force. So if you want me to consume your life force, go to the link in the description. The first challenge when playing any game is installing it. Luckily for us, Meridian 59 is available on Steam, where you can just jump in and play it right away. But is that what you should do? You see, Meridian is actually kind of complicated in its versioning, mostly because the company that made it went out of business, and then the company that bought it went out of business. So now it's open source, and there's a lot of different versions out there. The Steam version includes servers 101 and 102, which both run the standard version of Meridian, with very little changes compared to how the game was in 1996. It's the same old client, the same old textures, the same old spells, and the same old players. Over the years though, there's been multiple other servers that have come and gone. Meridian 59 Resurgence and Open Meridian are both private server projects that are based on the publicly available Meridian 59 source code. Each of these servers has made a bunch of enhancements to the game, like introducing an improved modern client, which makes the game a lot less ugly to look at and a lot more usable. These servers also come with some serious quality of life improvements, mostly in the form of more transparency of what's going on with your character in the background, but that's something I'll talk about later. All you need to know is that these projects help to modernize the game in some major ways that make them a lot more comfortable to play. So I played the Steam version with no changes. Listen, if I'm going to play 100 hours of an old game, I'm going to play the old game. With that all decided, it was time to make some even bigger decisions in character creation, which starts you off by choosing your character's name and writing your biography? The biography is completely optional, but I felt that if I was going to commit myself to this game, well then I'm gonna commit myself to the game. This turns out to be a great decision because people in-game can see your bio and learn more about you, so I'm glad they could read this and get a vibe for just the cool kind of guy I am. You only have a few options for your character's appearance, but to be honest, I feel like the default character looks pretty good. He's just missing something. There it is.
Here's a fun fact about Meridian 59 you might not know. You need a PhD to play it. Games these days can be a little bit easy, but Meridian 59 has a lot to figure out, and this next step of character creation is one of those things. At this point, you have to select your statistics, your spells, and your skills, all of which are a very, very important decision that can make or break your character and are also completely irreversible. They're completely irreversible. The 6 main statistics in Meridian are might, intellect, stamina, agility, mysticism, and aim. All of these have different effects, as you might have guessed. The client does give you some brief descriptions about what each stat relates to, but it's kind of like reading the first chapter of a fantasy book where they just keep using words and assume for some reason that you know what those words mean. For example, the stamina stat is used for Cranon spells. Cool. I don't know what that is. All I knew going in is that I wanted to play some sort of standard warrior character, which should be super simple. And luckily for me, the client even has presets for builds that include warrior and mage. So all I really have to do is just click on oh, looks like you're messing with the stats there, buddy. Okay, you're not gonna go with the preset? Okay, that's not gonna come back to bite us. After you've chosen your stats probably incorrectly, you now get to choose your spells and skills using your spell/skill points. Each spell/skill costs a different amount of points. Choose wisely, this is very important. First up is the spells, where you'll see a bunch of spells, and if you click on each one, you'll get a little description about what they do, and you'll also learn what school they belong to and what level they are. All you need to know is that the school is actually a very important part of the spell description, but if this is your first character, you probably didn't know that. After the spells, you have your skill selection, which include mostly just fighting styles, like slashing or dodging or blocking. So it's like melee spells, I guess, is the best way I can think to describe them. I decided, since I wanted to be a warrior, to focus mostly on these skills and kind of forego the spells. I did decide to buy one spell though, Sweep. It picks up a bunch of items for you. I don't think I used this spell a single time. Okay, and after all that, we finally have a character and we can play the game, which is a lot harder than it sounds. I don't think you understand how spoiled we are in the year of our Lord 2025. You start a new game now, and you'll have all these markers around you telling you where to go and what things are where and what to kill first. I mean, it's so simple. My smooth 30-year-old brain doesn't even know how to do anything in a video game unless I have a big arrow at the top that is pointing me in the exact direction I need to be going. I have Ooga Booga brain. Don't expect me to think for myself, but the mystery of this game goes beyond just not having things like quest indicators or a quest log. It's actually just a complete dearth of information on the internet. And yes, that was a good use of the word dearth. Back in 1996, you didn't have things like fan sites with a bunch of information for you, or forum posts that were easily searchable and available, and you definitely didn't have YouTube videos walking you through things. The only real way to figure things out in the game was to experiment and talk with people inside of the game. That's just how things were 30 years ago. Sorry about that. Anyway, to immerse myself in the game, I decided that I was going to not look anything up. I wanted to experience the game as it was meant to be played back in 1996.
This would end up being a massive mistake, but we'll get back to that later. The game opens up in a tavern where you're greeted by Marcus. Everyone say hi, Marcus. Did you just say it out loud? No, I meant go in the chat and type say hi. That's how you talk to NPCs in this game. That's how you do actually like everything in this game. I guess that explains why the UI takes up like 95% of the screen. If you click on Marcus with your mouse, you'll get a brief description of who he is and what he does, but you don't get any options to interact with him. Instead, you need to click on the chat and then type in buy or offer or any other command to interact with Marcus. If you're curious on if he actually sells things, you can type say buy and then your character will say buy and then Marcus will respond fuck you. But the system does go way beyond buying and selling. It's actually unbelievably complex. If you want to get a quest from an NPC, you don't just see an exclamation point over their head or see a quest log that tells you where to go. You have to just talk to that NPC and guess what the keywords it's looking for are. And the keyword isn't just quest. Okay, well, right now it is, but normally that's not the case. It usually is something related to a specific quest, but more on that later because there's so much to get to. The worst part is that you're saying these things out loud, so everyone around you can see you desperately trying to get an NPC to give you a quest. It's kind of a social anxiety nightmare, but this nightmare pales in comparison to the nightmare that is the utter lack of information that this game gives you up front. These days, we're accustomed to having world maps on hand at all times, but back in the 80s and 90s, that just wasn't the case in RPGs, and Meridian 59 is no exception. That means it's really easy to get lost, but on the bright side, you're at least given a minimap. In the tutorial, the minimap has tons of useful labels on it to tell you where different shops and NPCs are, but once you enter the main game, that all goes away and you have to start labeling this map yourself. I personally only ever used it once to remember where Penis Land is. I'm a 30-year-old man. Unfortunately for me though, a local map is about as far as Meridian is willing to go to help you out. The world is huge and confusing and you just have to figure it out. I'm getting ahead of myself though. Before we get to any of that, we need to get through the tutorial, so let's leave Marcus's comfy little tavern and go outside. All we have to do is move around. You know, the easiest part of any video game. Moving. Just WASD, right? W will move you forward, S will move you back, but the A and D keys strafe, which is a little awkward, but alright. The tricky part is looking around. To rotate the camera left, right, up, and down, you have to use the arrow keys. That means to move around efficiently, you have to have both hands on your keyboard. This isn't a big deal, but it's not my most comfortable position I've ever had. It becomes a bigger deal when you remember that the mouse is actually a big part of the game. To pick up and use items in your inventory, you have to click on them with your mouse, which means your hand is constantly moving from the keyboard to the mouse, to the keyboard, to the mouse. Am I nitpicking? I don't think so. This is like the thing you'll do the most in the game, so I kind of wish there was a better solution. Well, as it turns out, there is kind of a solution. If you press the C key, you can actually use your mouse to look around. This does have the drawback of the fact that you need to exit mouse look mode to click on things, which again you need to do very often, but it does make the actual act of moving around feel way better and much more modern, so it's not so bad, and I used it for 100 hours, so I'll take it. Oh my god, we're like 12 minutes into this video and I haven't even gotten up the tutorial yet. To be fair, this is really indicative of how much progress I made in an embarrassingly long amount of time. And I haven't even talked about combat.
Fighting in this game is actually super simple. You just look at whatever you want to hit and then you hold down the E key until it dies. How do you know how much damage you're doing? That all happens, you guessed it, in the chat. In the chat, you'll see little descriptions about if you hit the enemy, how damaged the enemy looks, if the enemy has hit you. You're not going to get any raw numbers to know how well you're doing or how much health the enemy has left. You just kind of have to intuit that from what the description reads. In that way, combat can feel a lot more like a text-based adventure game, which makes a lot of sense because that's kind of what Meridian 59 is. In 1996, we didn't have the term MMORPG. What we did have were something called MUDs, multi-user dungeons. MUDs were text-based games that multiple people could play through together. There were absolutely no graphics, and if there were, it might just be some ASCII representations of things. Meridian 59 was what was known as a graphical MUD, a graphical multi-user dungeon. It's built on the backs of those text-based adventures, just with graphics to show you what you're actually looking at or doing in the game. That's why so much of the interaction happens in the chat, and that's why there's so much information there as well. But the text-based part isn't the only awkward part about combat. There's also the fact that if there's multiple enemies in front of you, you're gonna have to target one so you can decide which one to hit. Normally that's pretty easy. You just click on what you want to target. That's a bit of a problem when you're in mouse look mode because you have to exit mouse look mode, then click on the enemy, and then you're good. And it gets even worse if there's two enemies in front of you, because then an additional dialog box will pop up that will ask you which one you want to target. So if there's two skeletons in front of you, it'll ask you, do you want to target the skeleton or do you want to target the skeleton? I don't know. But with combat now understood, we're ready to leave the tutorial, which we can do just by going through a portal, and then we're in Meridian. Welcome to Meridian. I started off in this small town called Meridian. I looked around and I quickly realized I don't know what to do. Like I said, my ooga booga brain can't really handle not having a marker telling me exactly where to go. And since I didn't have one of those, I just started walking around.
Along my journey, I would meet some NPCs who didn't care what I had to say to them. Some even seemed to be avoiding me entirely. I'd see enemies that I'd kill, not knowing what for. I mean, there's no XP bar, and I don't see a level or anything, so I don't even know if I'm killing things to level up or something. The closest thing I can find is my spells having little percentages next to them, but Who knows what that means? I'd get lost in mazes of trees and cliffs. I'd enter buildings that were a bit, oh God, Jesus Christ, man. Eventually, I met a creature stronger than I had any right to be fighting. This little freak. This is a frogman, and he kicked my ass. Pretty much instantly, all my hit points were gone, and I was transported to the underworld, greeted by Death himself, who looks familiar. Like I've seen him before, or like I'll see him soon. Sorry. Weirdly enough, I didn't actually seem to suffer any punishments on death. I had all my items, money, and stats, so I guess I'm fine. I figured the best thing to do from here was to keep exploring, but more importantly, to just start killing things. After all, the first MMO I ever played was Runescape back in 2005. When you created a character in that game, the first thing you do is kill goblins over and over again because you had no idea what else to do. So I guess it's time to do the same thing here. Since there aren't any visible levels or stats for enemies in the world, the only way to know if something is substantially stronger than you is to try and hit it a few times and let it hit you a few times. If the enemy laughs off your blow, you know you're way too weak to kill this thing. And if you lose 20% of your hit points when an attack is described as a graze, it's probably way too strong for you. There is actually a useful tip I figured out like 50 hours into gameplay, and that's that if you go to the NPC called Rook and start just talking to him about other monsters, he'll tell you if they're strong enough for you to fight, or if they're too challenging, or even if they're too weak for you. How did I figure this out? Because I randomly said the word want in front of him, and he read that as ant and started describing ants to me. So it's really useful though. After a little bit of experimenting, I found that caterpillars and rats were the easiest things for me to kill right now, so that's what I did. And after a few kills, something happened. I improved in the art of dodge, one of the skills I bought at character creation. By killing things and essentially using my skills, I was improving the percentage next to them. What exactly that number means is still a mystery to me, but I can only assume higher percentage is better. Pretty quickly I was improving in block and slash as well, and not too long after that I improved in another skill, but this one had a lot more fanfare around it. I suddenly felt a little tougher. My max hit points went from 23 to 24. This wasn't like the other skills. This felt significant, which led me to a theory. A game theory! What if max hit points are like your level? But that's just a theory. Thanks for watching. Despite this admittedly massive discovery of how the whole game works, there are still a lot of things I didn't understand. Like, was there some sort of hidden XP bar that just wasn't being shown to me? Does each monster give me a set amount of XP, or is it random? Are there diminishing returns for killing monsters weaker than you are, and are there increased returns for killing monsters that are much stronger than you? I have no idea. None of this is told to you. You just kind of have to figure it out. I want to say there's almost a charm to having such little information, but I also want to say it's really frustrating, so it got old pretty fast. At the very least, I now had a goal to get my hit points to be super high. For what reason? I don't really know, but a high number, good. Anyway, now that I knew that my only goal was to kill as many things as possible and get my hit points super high, I just kept doing that, and I did get my hit points pretty damn high. By this point, I had unironically been playing for about 15 hours, which is a little surprising considering how little progress I've made.
Yeah, no, this is not an exaggeration. I'm actually going through the footage right now, and like this is just a small part of what I recorded, and I make like no progress in all of this. It's actually insane. I don't know what I was doing.
But the truth is, the reason for this really slow progress is because this game is a lot to learn if you're not looking anything up. It's super slow, it's super confusing, and well, I'm kind of an idiot, so you know. But there was also a lot of distractions along the way. Along my grind, I ran into other players like Godzilla who buffed me up. I explored all these different parts of the world, running into massive castles where I met a princess who didn't really want anything to do with me, but it was cool to meet her. I found this random temple with a priestess who I didn't know what to do with. I wandered into a spider cave. It's just kind of crazy in here. I walked around here and I got lost and I couldn't figure out how to get out. This took me like 30 minutes to get out. And I just met some other terrifying NPCs. One of those slightly terrifying NPCs actually asked me to get him special chicken soup from Widow Casino. I'm pretty sure this was a quest, but I had been grinding for a while, so I was more than willing to try and get this man his soup. All I had to do was figure out where Widow Casino was, get the soup, and get back. How hard could that be? Let me just check my other monitor real quick here. Not looking anything up. I get the feeling Widow Casino is probably in Jasper. That's just a guess, though. So let's head to Jasper, which is this way. No, hold on. It's, oh, God.
Okay, yeah, it's time to come clean, guys. I started looking things up big time. This game is just too old, unique, to really understand without at least a little bit of help. Luckily for me, I did find two main resources that were essential for me playing this game. Let me show them to you right now. The first and most important thing that I found was this world map of Meridian. As you can see, it's extremely big, at least 6 inches. I understand this world map might look a little weird to you on account of how dumb you are, but don't worry, it actually makes a lot of sense. You see, the world of Meridian 59 is split up into a bunch of smaller zones, and those zones are stitched together. The direction in which you exit these zones will determine what zone you go to next. And that's what this world map is showing. If you leave the West Merchant Way and go north, you'll end up in the Valley of Illyria. Maybe. I'm doing that completely off of memory. If it's right, that's concerning. I knew that I started this quest in the town of Meridian because it says so in the title bar. So what I needed to figure out how to do is go from Meridian to wherever Widow Casino is. But how am I supposed to know where that Widow is? It's simple, really. I just have to go to a special website called gilcon.net. Now I know what you're thinking. Idle, this is a weird website. It kind of looks like the personal webpage of a IT manager and business solution provider with a resume and full experience. That's right, that's what it is. But believe it or not, this website is one of the single best resources for Meridian 59 in the world. All you have to do is add a quick /Meridian to the end of the URL, and all of a sudden, you'll be on Gilroy's Meridian website, or whatever it's called. I'll refer to this site later, but all you need to know is it has all you could possibly need to know about Meridian 59. To figure out where Widow Casino is, though, it's very simple. We just go down to NPCs, scroll until we find Widow Casino to see that she's in a town called Jasper. Bada bing, bada boom. All you had to do was go down to Jasper, find the widow, say chicken soup, get the chicken soup, go back to Meridian, give the old man the chicken soup, and get my reward, this magical old ring. Wow, it really was all worth it.
Hey, it's Editor Idol here to tell you that after 28 years of being online, the Gilroy Meridian website is no longer available. Literally, as I'm editing the video, trying to get the screenshots, the website isn't working. I had to go to the Wayback Machine to get the screen. This is crazy. It's been online for almost 30 years. And now, right when I'm making this video, did I do something? Gilroy, I'm sorry. Come back. We need you. Anyway, back to the video.
This chicken soup quest is not unique in the fact that any NPC can just randomly tell you they're feeling sick and you'll have to do this, but there's other quests out there. For example, one NPC might tell you they're playing chess against another NPC and to literally deliver their move by mail to the other NPC. It's equally useless to do, but hey, it's fun. So with one quest down and seemingly nothing gained from it, I decided to go back to training my hit points, which I quickly got to level 30. Exciting. My new friend Axel told me that the graveyard in the city of Toss would have zombies and skeletons spawn after midnight, so I should head there for a great new grinding spot. And that's great advice. It is a great grinding spot. One problem though, I died on the way there. Oops. Happens to the best of us. It's my own fault because I decided to read a piece of mail while I was on a dangerous road. That's what got me killed, but hey, since we're dead anyway and we know there's no consequences, we might as well read what that piece of mail says. From your guardian angel, deemed ready to take on the world without my protection, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't seem important. Anyway, let's take a quick look at my items. They're all gone.
Okay, so it turns out that 30 hit points is a pretty big milestone in Meridian. Most importantly, it's the point at which death has consequences. The death consequences include dropping all of your items on the spot and losing some skill and spell points. It's pretty serious, actually, and set me back kind of a lot. Or it would have. You see, there's probably about 15 players who are still active on this game. That means almost everyone knows each other, and they tend to treat each other pretty well. So a kind stranger called ZL Rands went to my death pile and whispered me to tell me he was protecting my stuff, and I had to get back quick before it all despawned. That's no problem. I can get back anywhere super quick. The only problem was I didn't know where I died, and I didn't have a map open. So that was gonna be a bit tough. Thanks to ZL Rands, I managed to get most of my stuff back and avoid a major setback in my progress. It was an act of selflessness that really made me think highly of the community, doing a kind act for nothing in return. Or at least that's what I thought. ZL, if you're watching this, you probably feel pretty good about yourself. In my panicked state during those moments we spent together, I didn't even think to check back over my items. But I've grown up a lot since last month. I'm 30 now. I'm wiser. And I checked the footage. Chat, spot the difference between these two images. Notice anything? Where did the 84 shillings go, ZL? You might think it's not a big deal. So ZL skimmed some off the top. He saved everything else you had. Is that really so bad? Yes, it is. The only thing worse than the enemy you know is the enemy you don't. ZL Rands is a wolf in sheep's clothing, a man with no honor, who follows no code, worships no god, and carries no morals. There was nothing left for me to do now but grind zombies, 84 shillings poorer. But why was I grinding zombies? It was getting harder and harder to stay motivated when I had no tangible goal to work towards other than seeing my hit points go up. There had to be something I was missing, and as it turns out, there was something I was missing. Something actually pretty massive. In a game with no point, I somehow missed the point.
Back when I was first just wandering around the world, I ran into this NPC called Jonas, and a player who was in the same area as me went up to Jonas and said, "Soldier." I didn't think much of it at the time. I did try to say soldier myself, but I got no response. But maybe I was just missing something, like some sort of requirement to have that dialogue option say something. So I decided to look it up, and wouldn't you know it, I missed the entire faction system. There are 3 factions that control the world of Meridian, and the players can join one of these 3 factions to help increase their power. You have Jonas, who I've already run into, and is my favorite because I know where he is, but there's also Princess, who I assume has a name, but I didn't look it up. And finally, there's Duke, who I assume has a name, but I didn't look it up. Each of these factions comes with their own unique bonuses once you join. Is that true? Hold on, I'm not even joking, I didn't know this. I didn't know this when I played the game. That would have been really good to know. The only catch is that to join a faction, you first need to hit 40 hit points. So I'll just do that real quick. So it's time to get 40 hit points. I am now 40 hit points. On a new character? What the heck? This isn't my original character. Imposter among us, something smells sus. Yeah, so along my journey to 40 hit points, I started to do a little bit more research about my stat and spell selection, and it turns out I made bad choices. Choices that would very quickly catch up to me if I didn't just make a new character and pick the correct stat and spell distribution. I'll go into the specifics of why later, because it's a little bit complicated, but all you need to know is that this character is good. Unfortunately, this does mean I had to throw away my 30-ish hours of progress on a character that was almost 40 hit points, but that's only made worse by the fact that it took me about 1/10 of the time to get to 40 hit points on my new character. So I guess I'm just an idiot.
Either way, with 40 hit points, I was now ready to go and join Jonas because I only knew where he was. All you have to do to join him is walk up to him and say, join, and then he'll ask you to prove your loyalty to his cause, which is pretty simple. He'll just ask you for an item, and then you go get that item. This can be either really easy or really hard. It's really easy if he asks you either for an easy item or if you have a high-level friend who can just give you whatever he asks for. I have no friends, and I'm also really unlucky, so this took a few tries. The first thing he asked me for was something called a Mystic Sword, which you can get either from a cave orc or a loopog. I couldn't reach cave orcs for a bunch of reasons, but I could reach loophogs. Unfortunately, I did not know how strong they were, and killing one just wasn't going to be possible. So it was time to take a second try at this, and this time he asked me for something a little bit more reasonable. Gauntlets. Gauntlets can be dropped by either trolls or the Ghost of Far Knoll. The Ghost of Far Knoll is extremely powerful and also extremely scary, but I feel like I could probably down a troll if I gave it my best shot. The problem was, on my way to killing a troll, I went AFK, which in this game is a horrible idea, and I died to a baby spider? Seriously? So now I was back under 40 hit points and had to get to 40 hit points again. And by the time I was done doing that, the quest had expired and I needed to go try again. At this point, I was pretty frustrated with the many hours I had spent making no progress. So I logged out in the middle of a city, which I thought was a safe area. But as it turns out, it isn't. And in this game, logging out in what is called an unsafe area is a really bad thing to do. Upon logging back in, I had a new piece of mail, which unfortunately I failed to record. But it looks something like this, but instead of saying I lost 0 items and 0 skill points, it said I had lost many items and many skill points. So you guessed it, I was back under 40 hit points. So I once again went to go kill some orcs, get 40 hit points, and head back to Jonas. Along my journey, I did manage to get an extra Knight's Shield from a kind player. This is a big deal because the Knight's Shield is something that Jonas can ask you for. And on my 4th attempt of joining Jonas, he finally asked for the Knight's Shield. I quickly handed him the shield, and just like that, I was a member of Jonas's rebellion. This whole journey could have been so much easier if I just asked for help, and I think that's a testament to what kind of game Meridian 59 is. It's obviously extremely hardcore, punishing you just for logging out in the wrong area, but it really encourages collaboration. I think this is what people are looking for when they ask why MMORPGs aren't as social as they were back in the day. And it's because back in the day, with how hardcore these games were, progress would be significantly faster if you worked together. These days, it's much more likely that soloing stuff is just as fast as grouping, and grouping is just an optional thing you can do. I'm not saying this system is objectively better or even objectively good, but there is something here, something that we don't see anymore. And the moral of the story is, sometimes it's okay to ask for help, guys.
So just like that, I was a member of Jonas's rebellion, and that came with some pretty huge benefits, like me hitting harder or hitting more accurately or regenerating HP faster, and sometimes even improving my skills quicker. This is a great upgrade to have and will make grinding to further hit point levels much faster. And the best part was, I didn't play the game for 5 days after this, because I was gone to celebrate my 30th birthday at a Survivor-themed birthday party. It was awesome.
But when I got back, excited to continue grinding to 50, 60, maybe even 70 hit points on my favorite game, Meridian, tragedy struck. I was wandering through the Crag Mountains on the way to my new mob grinding spot in Castle Victoria when, all of a sudden, darkness. My map was blank, my eyes were burning, my pulse was pretty much normal. Before I knew what was happening, my vision returned, but it was no longer the beautiful cragged mountains sitting there before me. It was the underworld. It was death. I had just lost everything I had worked towards to a PKer named AMG. It turns out they had gone on something of a killing spree, which hadn't gone unnoticed by the other 5 people online at the time. AMG farts cum, some were saying. Burps and sneezes it too, one inquired. Literal Marvel superheroes were offering the protection to little guys like me. It was pandemonium. AMG even private messaged me to tell me that he wouldn't kill me anymore unless I annoyed him. I told him I just wasn't ready to forgive him yet, but maybe one day I'd be able to. But the damage was already done. That moment made me realize something. I was weak. I was adding nothing to this server and was being fed on by those who were above me. It was time for that to change. Obviously, one way to get stronger is by practicing my skills, like slash, dodge, and block. Those are all great. Those happen to fall under the weaponcraft school of skills and are, for the most part, level 1 skills. To learn level 2 weaponcraft skills, I needed to earn enough practice with my level 1 skills, and then this NPC from earlier would start selling me new ones. But you can't get very far as a warrior with just weaponcraft. You need more in your arsenal. You need spells. Specifically, Cranon spells. And now you understand why I threw away my first character in favor of my much more handsome, much more bald second character. Bald. Learning new spells from each school in Meridian is a little bit difficult, so I'm going to try and explain it very quickly. Basically, you move up from level 1 spells to level 2 the same way you do for weaponcraft skills, with a small catch. The more schools you learn, the longer it will take for you to level up in any one school. So it's better, in essence, to stick with one school at a time and level it hard. This is entirely for role-playing purposes that they call just devotion. So that's why that's that way. That was one of my first mistakes with my first character. I took the spell Sweep when I should have taken a Cranon spell instead. I had inadvertently set myself back by kind of a lot. Secondly, the speed at which you improve with spells is soft capped by that school's related stat. If you remember at character creation, it laid out which schools use which stat, and since Cranon uses stamina, that's the skill that would soft cap my level with Cranon spells. The soft cap was my second mistake at character creation. I didn't max out my stamina. With 50 stamina, I don't have a soft cap anymore. But what does a soft cap even mean? So the soft cap basically just means when you get to twice your stats level in spell level, what's that? You don't care? You don't care about how the back end of a 1996 video game works? Okay, yeah, that's fair, that's fair. All you need to know is that with my second character, I used a much more viable build with a lot more Cranon spells that were not only making me much more powerful, but gave me a lot more potential moving forward. So with my stats and spells now sorted out, I could start grinding to improve all of my weaponcraft skills, Cranon spells, and my hit points. But for what? What's the end goal here? Simple. To make my faction proud. And there's only one way to do that. All the time around the world of Meridian, there's a chance that something called an artifact can drop, alerting the entire game. If you can return that artifact to its rightful owner, one of the 5 counselors of Meridian, your faction will increase its power. There's actually a lot more to this, and returning an artifact to a counselor isn't always the right thing to do, but for simplicity, this is the end goal, baby. If I could just turn in one artifact, I'd feel like my work here was done. So it was time to get grinding. First up, my spell. I literally did this for hours. Sometimes I went to go kill stuff for a little bit. Sometimes I went on crazy parkour journeys to get these things called mana nodes that increase your maximum mana, but mostly it was this for hours. And you know what? I kind of liked it. Sure, this game is old and crusty and requires insane amounts of grinding just to get to the new insane levels of grinding, but there's something cool about it. The world has so much charm to it, with little hidden secrets around every corner. NPCs will give you helpful hints if you stand around them long enough or know just what to say. Unlike the standard theme park MMOs that hold your hand every step of the way like the ones we get these days, Meridian is an actual virtual world, one that feels good to progress in. Before I knew it, I had gained access to my level 2 weaponcraft skills and reached the maximum level of Bless, my main Cranon spell. That meant I could take the absurdly long journey to the Temple of Cranon far beyond the Crag Mountains and learn level 2 Need to make drastically further progress. Okay, that's fine. I like the grind. So let's go back to the tavern. We'll max out 1 or 2 more Cranon spells, and then we should be good to go. So I took the journey to the Cranon Temple once again, ready to purchase my still no. Okay. Well, I'm already at 100 hours of game time here, and I think I need to move on to a new game. So you know what? Let's just do it. Let's go get the artifact. The way to figure out where an artifact might be is simple. You go to Jonas or whatever faction leader you're a part of and ask them for where the artifact is. But there's a trick to this. Your faction leader does not have definitive information about where the artifacts are. They can be wrong. I didn't know that, so I asked him once and moved on. And as it turns out, what he told me was a lie. Despite my ignorance, I was sure I was about to get an artifact any second now, but before I went on that grind, I wanted to get a little bit of better gear, mostly by going to Tusk Skeletons in Castle Victoria until they dropped me some scimitars and knight shields so I could stay grinding for a long time no matter how much gear broke. Unfortunately, Tusk Skeletons don't have the best drop rate of knight shield, so it could take a little bit before... Oh my god. There it is. The Jade Cat. Like 3 kills. That's what I've been waiting for. This isn't even where I was supposed to go. It's a sign. It's a sign from God that I'm free. I can move on. I can leave this game. I picked up the artifact as quickly as I could. You need both hands to carry it and your vigor starts dropping rapidly. So I needed to get this artifact back to its owner as quickly as possible. And I did. I beelined it for that beautiful shack where that handsome NPC was waiting for me. I handed him his Jade Cat and he gave me a worthless stick. And then someone else called me bald. You might think the reward doesn't match the effort I went to, but I would say that's not the point. It's about the journey, not the destination. And my journey was one of doing the impossible, beating Meridian 59 in 100 hours.
After over 100 hours played, most of which I didn't even show you here, I had finally accomplished like a tenth of what this game has to offer. It's actually impressive how massive and deep this game is for when it came out. I think I can honestly say this 30-year-old game is it's pretty good. Oh, you should totally install it on Steam and maybe you could play it for an hour or 100 hours. Or 1,000 hours. Or 1,000,000!
I have hunted you for many moons. Finally, I have you.
Who are you?
Don't you recognize me, my old friend?
You've been following me. Why?
30 years is plenty. Wouldn't you agree? It is your time, bold one. You must come with me.
I don't think I'm ready.
Fear not the end, my hairless child. Were it not for the passing of time, trees would not grow and the tides would stand still. Memories would not be made and love would not be felt. Growing old is something to be cherished. It is a blessing to exist, and an even greater one to be remembered so many years later. You have nothing to fear. I will guide you the rest of the way.
I understand. This game is old, and it hasn't aged particularly well, but that's okay. We can accept and even respect the game for the value it provided back in its day, without having to claim it's some sort of masterpiece that holds up today. And even still, it's something that is loved and appreciated by people around it. It's providing value to them in whatever small way. Just like me. Just because I'm 30 years old now doesn't mean I've lost my value or people don't still respect and love me. I mean, you respect and love me, right? Say it. Say it right now. Say you respect and love me. Come on. Say it. Leave that comment. Say you.
Hey, you're a patron. Thank you so much for your support. Hey, you're a patron. I like you very much, cause hey, you're a patron. Patreon is where you're at. You went to the URL in the description and you gave me your money, and that's pretty neat. Hey, you're a patron. Thank you so much for your support. Hey, you're a patron. I like you very much, cause hey, you're a patron. Patreon is where you're at. You went to the URL in the description and you gave me your money, and that's pretty neat.